Welcome to the Magical Medicals podcast. I'm your host, Buddy Abrahams.
And I'm Terry Allen.
A show about the moments that changed people's lives forever. Welcome to the Magical Medicals podcast. And today we have Nicole Laffranchi with us. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
I think you guys got well connected, you and Nicole, right? Okay.
Yeah, I think we've known each other a couple of years now. Do you think? Like 2.5 years? Yeah. So where we, through hearing some of Nicole's stories, we really wanted to invite her on to share her story because it is very different. And again, you'll be able to help someone else in their life. And actually it came through, I think coming onto the podcast was because we were doing a session together. Right. And then at the end of the meditation, I was getting during the meditation to ask you to come on. And so that's how it ended up that you're on here. So I'm really glad that you wanted to share your story. Your is very personal as well, but to share it with our listeners and to help people. And, I feel that everyone always picks some of the tools up as we go along, or there's a message for somebody out there.
Oh, I'm deeply honored that you chose me and to share my story. It's a very vulnerable story because, having a special needs child has been a journey I wouldn't have necessarily chosen, but what chose me. So I feel deeply honored to share my story because I think it has a lot of nuggets in it.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to hearing it as well because I know you have a special needs child because I know your family, but I don't know your story fully, your journey. So
how did you two meet?
At Agape. She was came to where the children's book section were, and then she bought the books.
Yeah, I have a typical developing daughter, Gemma, and I found Terry and her books, and the Magical Garden changed our life. Right, we utilize it daily, really, to help us to get to understand what's really going on inside. So as I got to know Terry, then I learned more about what you guys do. So I was blessed to have her share her knowledge and gifts, even continue with Gemma and I. So it's been wonderful.
Fantastic.
Well, we're going to leave it all to you, darling, to start your journey, your story. And
Okay. So I have a beautiful son, Alessandro. He is 14. He has Down syndrome. I don't talk a lot about my story. I think it's a very unique experience. And so it's very hard to have, I feel other people have a hard time relating when you have a child who's different than their child. And people can be a little nervous to ask you questions and what happened and how did you know? I had my son, I was young, I was 29. So it wasn't typical to have a Down syndrome child. So we had done the testing and it had come back negative. And so I'm very deeply spiritual. So I've been, had a spiritual practice for a long time. So I didn't feel anything was coming that would have been a shock or a surprise. So I had to deal with a lot of recalibrating ideas. So I didn't find out until it was an emergency cesarean. And we went into the OR and they took him out. And then they wheeled me into recovery and people were running around and I could hear his placenta was going to Stanford and I didn't understand all these things. I was a new mom and I didn't know what was happening. And my ex-husband, a couple hours later came around the corner and he was sobbing and he laid on my stomach and he was sobbing and he said he has Down syndrome and he has a heart defect. And I don't know if you can feel God in a moment, but in that moment, I felt God was with me. I felt this calm that I can't explain, that everything was going to be okay. And I didn't know how, but I was very calm. And I remember the doctor saying to me in that moment, the pediatrician came in and she said, he is going to be a retard and he will never drive a car. And I sat there in that moment and I said, I will prove you wrong. And my husband left. It was a lot for him. He didn't know if he could be married to me in that moment. He didn't know he could be a dad to him and he left us there. So he came back, but
he left. He couldn't cope.
He couldn't cope. He didn't know if he wanted to be my husband anymore, and he didn't know if he could be a dad. And it was a lot, and and my son being half African American, he felt that, I think the doctor even said, I think it was partly his fault because he was African American. It was very silly. When you're dealing with that, I don't think you're processing in the right way. And it's pretty intense, I have to say. Nothing you would wish on anyone. At that point in time, I was working in a corporate environment, and there was 3 of us pregnant. And I remember finally getting home, getting Sandro out of the NICU. He had a lot of complications, and getting home, and I was deeply embarrassed. I was in, this isn't, you won't hear most of us talk about that your child's birth was the worst day of your life. To me, that's what it felt like. And so I went from feeling this angelic presence and knowing God's love and knowing I was going to be okay. And then my ego stepped in and said, no, it's not. Look, you gave birth to something that was a defect. And
wow.
Yeah, it's quite strong.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
That's society.
Yeah.
Thinking everything should be perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was funny. I listened to a woman, and it was the only time I ever heard anyone say out loud what I had been thinking. And I wanted to give back all the gifts. I wanted to crawl in a hole. And I was, anytime I said, people would call and say, oh, how is your son? And I say, we heard he has Down syndrome. We're so sorry. And you have to process. You're not hearing like, I'm so excited for you. You're not hearing all of those words of, this is encouraging.
It was, I'm sorry. Like there was something broken.
Something broken. And so I went through a lot of years. I hid him. I didn't utter being spiritual. I felt like if I said he had Down syndrome, it would create it, right? So and people didn't understand what I was doing, but I didn't want to put anything on him. I wanted him to have his own, see what would unfold. I had Reiki practitioners coming and working on him weekly. I did everything in my power to fix him.
Oh, interesting.
And I thought if I fixed him, I could fix my marriage. I thought if I fixed him, I could, have the ease in my career. I could back on VP track, and I'd see great things happen for me. It would be peaceful. If I fixed him, he would be a miracle. And he was about, I want to say 3 or 4 after Gemma was born. And I was still fighting that. I was still fighting that internal need for him to be what society deemed as perfect. And then something clicked inside that God makes no mistakes. And probably somebody told me that along the way, but you can't hear it when you're in it. And I surrendered. And I made a deep commitment not to suffer anymore. And I accepted him. I stopped being his educator, and I sat back and I looked at him as divine perfection. And in that moment, the world changed. I got a divorce.
When did you realize this?
I think he was about 4 years old.
4 years old.
Mm-hmm. It took a long time for me.
But this was after your second birth of your daughter as well, right?
Yeah.
So your husband came back to you.
Yep,
in between.
he did. Yep. Yeah, he came back pretty quickly when we were home. He didn't leave and go far away. I think he left more emotionally than he left physically.
Did he support you throughout the entire time with your son?
No. I want to give him grace too, because we deal with things differently. He took it very
personal.
And he pushed Sandro. Like he too did the same thing. We just did them in very different ways. He wanted, we're going to push him and make sure he can do everything fast. If someone said he can't do it, he's going to make sure he did it. So he'd feeding himself on his own and all of those things. So no, I think we both handled it differently, but kind of the same, but not together, not as a united front. That's the thing that was challenging, because we both just had different approaches to how we were going to care for him in his life. He's a wonderful dad now. I think he loves being with Sandro now. It took a lot of years, but he's actually very close. I thought he would actually have the best relationship with Sandro.
So at what point have you surrendered? What happened in your life that you said, you know what, it's time for me to surrender now and give it all up?
Honestly, it was the decay of my marriage, right? With all the stress that was on us, my ex-husband had some challenges, with drinking and different things that made it hard. And I was trying to keep something together that was very broken. We were waiting for him to pass out so that we could get up and go to bed. We were hiding.
And you didn't have the fear of the second child to be exactly the same as well.
I did. Yeah. And we actually went through all of the testing. Actually, she came back. Gemma's test came back. It was terrifying. I remember calling my father. My husband was sitting next to me in the car, and I called my father because the doctor called and said there was indications she had Downs. There are 3 forms of Downs. There's they have a translocation gene, which means it's a genetic. Then there's a spontaneous, just a typical trisomy 21, where you get the extra chromosome. And then there's something called a mosaic, where they can be part Downs. Sandro is a Downs mosaic, so because some wouldn't register. So I knew I didn't have the translocation, so I would be like a really good lottery winner if I got 2 of them. But so I knew that Gemma didn't have it. I think she was 8 weeks. I was 8 weeks along, and I found out she did not have Downs. But it was scary for a few minutes there because we thought we'd have to do it again.
Wow. So you're now at the stage where you've surrendered completely and you gave it up to God. How was that feeling? Talk to us through that emotion that took place.
There was a lot of embarrassment and shame in it, right? In the beginning, that I first saw myself as what I was, wanting him to be different than who he is meant to be. So there was some shame in that. And then there was this, I maybe you will understand that peace that you get in your stomach where it's like, I knew my marriage wasn't going to survive. I knew that I knew that I was changing everything, but I knew that we were going to be okay through it. So it felt, it went from a very emotional state to almost like that sense and that feeling I felt when I was in the recovery room, that level of peace, that level of, now I can really allow the magic of who he is to come forward.
You felt like you were just completely pushing all the time. And then you just thought, oh, forget it. I can't.
I couldn't. There was no way. I mean, I remember, the head, shoulders, knees, and toes. I remember him being in his room in the little chair and he couldn't get it. And I was screaming in his face. And I said, what are you doing? What are you doing to this child? I wanted, my A-type personality needed him to do the head, shoulders, knees, and toes. And I thought, oh, I looked at his face and he wanted to get it, right?
Yeah.
It was harder for him. And so I think there's been a lot of moments along the way that got me to that moment of surrender. But I had to come to that point where I was going to accept who he was, and that his journey was going to be different, but it was still going to be purposeful and beautiful.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's challenging because people tell you things. I remember the day the school district called me when he was 4, and they told me we had to check him off as MR. And I hadn't heard that word, mentally retarded, since that birth.
Yeah.
Wow.
I've not heard that.
And I was at my desk at work, and they had called me because I really, really was trying still. It was that time when he was around 4 years old. I was still efforting. I wanted him so bad to go to mainstream school, do everything like he was supposed to, drive a car. He was going to prove that doctor wrong, right? He was going to prove everyone wrong. And my employees had to come over because I just dropped and sobbed on my desk. I was like, and then I'm like, you know what? No one gets to decide who he is. He gets to decide who he is. And he's perfect. He really is perfect in his own ways. He has his challenges. Don't get me wrong. I have really hard days, but he's still perfect. He's still divine perfection. God doesn't get it wrong, ever. He doesn't get it wrong.
So what happened at the time of your relationship with your husband? When you surrender, you obviously you got divorced from your husband as well, right?
Yes.
Everything changed in your life.
Everything changed. Yeah. At the same exact time I got a divorce, I actually I was laid off from my job I'd been at for 12 years. Everything kind of changed at once, and I was really scared. I'm grateful though. I've always had a very strong spiritual practice. So at that point, not to the level I have today, but I definitely worked on manifesting and affirmations and prayer. And I was blessed. Within 3 weeks, I got a better job, making a lot more money. I was blessed. My niece came, she stayed and helped with my son. She was miraculous with him. I had an amazing nanny at the time too. She was just pure love. I just started to notice all the demonstrations, all God showing up constantly, and that I was really never without. And so that's what started happening. Things started to just flow in my life a lot easier.
And your relationship with your son has improved?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I was so angry with him. It's really hard to admit that because of my spiritual practice, I felt like he betrayed me. He didn't tell me before he was coming that this was going to be the story. I know it sounds crazy, but I was mad at him. And I had to do
I think you definitely knew. We just, when we come down, we forget.
Yes.
We definitely chose each other. And then it was like, did I? You know, like we're all down and it's like, really? Did I ask for that? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I think when I woke up, right, I started to accept. Today, I call him my ride or die, right? He's so funny. And I hope, I really just recently made the decision that when he's ready, that he can go live in a either group home or with friends, right? And it was hard because I'm like, he's always going to be with me. We're going to always go and do things. He's going to be my buddy for life. But now I'm seeing that he has his own personality, and he's got this social need that I cannot fulfill. So I think now, and I really rely on other people to educate him. I think people look at me and they think, oh, she's lackadaisical. She doesn't really want to engage in those particular, like the therapies and all of that stuff. And it really isn't because I don't care. It's because I care. It's because what comes out in me is that push, that wanting him to be different. And I don't want to show up that way for him.
Yeah, you want him to just learn and have his own way of learning and evolvement and evolving, through himself. Yeah, and I think that's what it is. And also you have Gemma, which is, she's a girl, she's not a boy, and they are completely two different personalities anyway. Yeah, and that's the blessing I wanted to say, Terry, in finding you, because one of the things that a lot of special needs families don't talk about is that they, when you have a special needs child, it takes over all of, I'm a single mom, right? So I'm trying to ensure that Gemma's needs are met and Sandra's needs are met. And the blessing of finding you, Terry, was finding a way to communicate and bring out where she felt like she wasn't getting that support. We've had to find different ways to communicate and be so that she can feel like she's loved and seen and that she's magical in her own way. I think, because the brother can overshadow, right? Which is normal. And actually, I think you keep it very well balanced. Thank you. With her, from what I've seen, you also give her time and the cheerleading and her sessions here or holidays, or, you do keep it balanced with both children. Yeah. But I know a child can also take on a mindset that everything's about my brother, because he's different. And so I could understand that. But I think looking at Gemma now, I don't think she feels that like she's left out or I don't get that. I think it was a little bit before, but not now. There's more of a mature understanding. She's got her stuff going on, and you have brought a lot of different help in for her. Yeah, definitely. And I'm grateful, because I'm grateful that I'm open to allowing people to help me. I realize I can't do it alone. I realize that she doesn't speak the way I speak, and what I need and what she needs are different. And especially going into teenagehood, and it is challenging. We've been thinking about maybe having her join a support group for siblings,
because it's a different world. She takes on a level of responsibility that most 11-year-olds wouldn't take.
How is her relationship with her brother?
Right now it's challenged. I think to be honest,
that's normal with any family. Yeah, any family brother and sister situation is like, oh.
She's very she tries, and he's very bothered by her, right? Like he doesn't want to be, he's going through puberty and he doesn't want to be dealing with this.
How old is he now?
14.
He's 14 and Gemma's
11,
the same as Michael. 11.
Yeah.
And you know, when you know, because obviously you are big on prayer, and your family is big on that, and they instilled it into you. But have you ever, like, when you think of a moment when you really did call out for clarity and help, that it really came in very strongly?
Oh, I think there's been so many times I really have seen the demonstration of God's love. Just miraculously, people would show up where especially with daycare and working, a pretty intense career. There's times where I've been in desperate ways, wanting help, and magically somebody will call me the next day, or they will have a lead, or they will, and get me the support that I need. We also, tragically and not tragically, Eric had their dad had a stroke, and is disabled now. And I care for him as well. And he, the beautiful part of that for our family has been, we're more connected, we're stronger. Healing was able to happen that hadn't been there before.
Do you think it was healing there because, obviously had a stroke, and then obviously he also slightly became disabled? Do you think that gave him a more connection with his son and an understanding of,
yeah.
Sorry to say that, but, came to my mind that he would then, it is unusual, isn't it?
It's like almost he's almost could feel that emotion that the child is feeling because of his situation.
Yeah.
Which makes it easier in terms of connection with him.
Yeah.
Do
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
I think it's interesting how the universe is all worked it all out completely.
How that happened. I never thought about that actually till now.
Yeah, it really. I hadn't either. And it's interesting because Eric talks about it all the time, that he and Sandro are going to get a place together, live together, and be buddies forever, and I think it's really, really cool to see how our family has kind of evolved that way. Even Gemma's relationship with her dad is beautiful, because we split when Gemma was 1 year old, almost 2. So she's had an opportunity to gain a relationship. So we've had so much healing, despite all the perceived tragedies that we've had, or disappointments, or things not going the way you think they will. we've had a lot of good unfold.
To any parent that's out there, like, how would you, let's say they're looking for help, or they're looking for guidance, or is there any way that you pray, or any tools spiritually that you would like to share with them?
I really like, Terry, what you just taught me, and dear God, please help me with whatever I'm looking for. That's been very helpful. I also would say to any special needs parent, or any parent in general, is trust your gut, right? That child, the one thing I learned along the way is he chose me. And that means I'm fully equipped. There is no problem without a solution that God has for me. So I know I have to trust me when I make a decision. I have to trust that I'm going to make the right decision for Sandro. And I think trusting that inner guidance, and having a meditation practice and quietness. And also, and so important, is tending to yourself. Really, being a mom, especially, I think a lot falls on us, but I think that and you have a special need on top of that, really having a practice for yourself where you're praying or meditating, whatever works for you, reading, going to the gym, whatever it is, you got to fill yourself up before you can keep going. And I think that's the thing that, my kids know about me, is I'm going to take that time for myself, because I can't be present with them or a good mom if I'm not listening. And it's hard to get quiet when it's so busy.
Yeah. I think those simple words, like asking God to help me, or to, you know, in any situation, means that you are letting go and surrendering and helping, you know, being open to receive whatever that is coming in without having control upon it.
Yeah. And you don't have to shoulder it.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask the big question, because I'm sure people would want to know. You're taking care of your ex-husband today, your son and your daughter. If you get another partner coming in, how's that going to work the dynamics?
Oh, well, my ex-husband, he's able to live on his own. So I don't have to help as much anymore, which is good.
Okay.
So,
He doesn't live there.
yeah.
Okay.
He doesn't live with me. No. We have a really great relationship and in that sense where I think, you know, he would support me with whomever comes in. I think even when I've dated before, he's pretty funny, right? He wants to be their friend. Hey, next time we had to hang out, right? So we're kind of a unique bunch. I think thank God for that, right? We're very accepting. I want everything good for him to happen, and he wants everything good to happen for me. I would say, and I think that evolution, it's going to take a special partner, right? It's really like I've been praying for that. Like, can you accept all of this greatness? That's the thing too, as I had to learn. One of the things that I've learned in practicing with both Terry and my practitioner are that I'm worthy of having a partner that can accept all of this, right? That I'm good enough. I'm enough.
Every family's got their broken bits
Completely.
and some of them are very glossed over. You know, everything looks perfect, but everyone's got their family bits that need adjustment to or healing, or it's not about the way you look or it's normally there.
The cracks are there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So is there anything else that you would share with any other tips that you would give any parents that are listening or in that situation for the first time? Or
I wish that somebody would have looked at me and said, he's so perfect when he was born.
Said that?
No.
Wow.
And that
not even the nurses, no one.
Mm-mm. Because it was so, they didn't know, and there was so much ambiguity around his diagnosis in the first few days. And I wish that somebody, and I know other special needs moms, what I wish is that they would give themselves grace, that this is actually a blessing in your life, and this road does not look like what you thought it was going to look like, but it's going to be even more magical than you ever imagined. You learn to cherish the pencil grip. You learn to cherish the words. My son says French fry. He went through a drive-through and he ordered a shake and he shook. Like, I want to shake, because he couldn't get the words. And the joy that brought for me when the lady understood he wanted to shake, I cherished the littlest things. I went from just rushing through life to appreciation of the smallest things. I don't, and I'm blessed. He's not medically fragile, and some.
No, he's not.
Yeah, no.
He's a big boy.
And some people have the medically fragile, but what I've known from the moms that I've been with, they're the most amazing humans I know, and I think that you're seen, and that you're enough, and that you're wonderful, and that you're going to always do the right thing. You never feel like you're doing enough. Am I going to disappoint God? Did I do enough for him? You're always asking yourself, and we're so hard on ourselves. I think that's a commonality. I think amongst moms in general. I think, but in special needs, you feel like you've been given this angel, and you're like, did I listen enough? Was I too selfish? Was I that type of thing? I'd say give yourself grace. They chose you, and therefore you're equipped.
And I think what you just said before, someone gives a positive word.
Yes.
Yeah. It's
someone say something positive at the end of the day is a child.
I think we have to accept each other for who we are.
Yeah.
No matter what.
And that was our conversation with Neil Donald Walsh last week, that we released, was allowing everyone to be as they are, who they are, and without all this judgment and separation. And you know, we're all unique part of a puzzle, and that's what makes the collage so beautiful.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's one of the things too, is that other
Otherwise
parents,
it'd be extremely boring.
yeah, wouldn't it? That's the other thing I would ask too, is other parents, like, be careful how you describe our special needs children to your children. It really translates to how our children are treated. I've seen that a lot. And then I've seen so much goodness, but like acceptance and inclusion. And I mean, I'm so blessed. We have so many friends that their kids will play with him and include him and try to work with him on where
it is education from parents to the children, that there's nothing wrong with anyone, whether it's a learning disability or background from culture or anything.
Yeah. And don't poo-poo your kids for asking. I hear that a lot when people are around Sandro and I. They'll say, the children will ask, like, why doesn't he talk?
Oh, yeah, of course, they're learning.
Why is he vibrating? And and they'll say, shh, don't ask her. And I'm like, no, ask me.
Yeah, you're right.
Ask me.
Because then they'll understand, they'll learn, they'll have an understanding.
Yeah. And you never know what it'll lead to, right? I've heard so many stories along the way where people were just inspired by a special needs person. They ended up in education or some type of therapy that changed the world.
You're right, actually. Allow the children to ask.
Yeah.
And not be ashamed.
We shouldn't. Yeah, and we shouldn't be ashamed to answer those questions as parents of special needs, because we can educate and inform and make the world better. Sandro is magically Sandro. He vibes, right? He carries these things around. They call booze. We call him his booze. And it's really funny because we'll yell across the field, "Do you have your booze?" We're like, we know he has a drinking problem, but we tease, we make fun and joke because these things, it's just who he is. He's funny and he stims because
he has got a light energy. Actually, he hasn't got a heavy energy. He does have a lot of energy, but he does have a joyful energy. It's not a heavy negative energy. It's just a lot of energy.
Oh boy. Yeah. That's the next nanny I need is a man coming in. Run him. I said, he wants to be a dude. That's the thing. Like, and he'll tell you all day, show you the gun show, and he's a lot of fun. And I think that I'm so grateful for my surrender, because I've been able to enjoy more than not enjoy his journey, than try so hard to effort in making it different than the natural flow of it.
Well, thank you for sharing, darling. And I think that's, you've given some great tips to parents on how you're feeling and your journey. And I think that will be great for people to get to learn from, or to hear your tools or your techniques and your connection to the divine, that you're always praying and asking and guided. And that's why, you're doing great now. You look great, and you've done a great, you've been very strong on your journey. And I think you've done a great job. I don't know if I could have done what you did on my own, but I think that, you to honor yourself, and to any parents, thank you.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
And laugh a lot, right? Laugh, have joy and levity. Yeah, that's the.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's God has a funny sense of humor, but it's all good. I think
you're 100% correct.
Well, thank you so much, Nicole. Thank you for joining us,
guys. I'm deeply honored you asked me, and thank you for allowing me to share my story.
No, I wanted you to share your story because it's unique, and I don't think many people share it, but I think it's unique in a way that it can, on our program, it can then touch someone else.
I hope so. Yeah.
Thank you.
Someone have a little more peace. Well, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, darling.
Talk soon.